The first thing they always want to know is, who's my head Orisha?
It's because they're looking for a savior still. Ori is the only divinity that walks with us without ever turning back.
Important.
People often will think that initiation or connecting with Orisa is going to fix their problems, and it will not.
So how do we know when we are out of alignment with our Ori?
Say, listen, if y'all waiting for the sky to open up and the hand of Olodumare to come down, you're going to be waiting a mighty long time.
Stop approaching this with fear.
Christian theology didn't resonate with me.
This is the level of deep work that I think it's like
we have to believe ourselves worthy of it.
It closes you up.
A lot of times the reason why people don't want that power is because with power comes responsibility. You know, we got to stay moisturized, oiling down with the shea butter. Like
marry a Babalawo.
Right. Marry the Babalawo who did the divination. Your good black sense is your first divination tool. When we are desperate, a lot of times people take advantage of that.
Everything is not always going to feel hunky-dory,
if you're too comfortable, that means you're not growing, right?
Some of my world just opened up a little bit.
I got chills with that.
Welcome to another episode of Voices of Iwa. I'm your host, Iya Omisegun, and Voices of Iwa is a podcast that focuses on amplifying the voices of women across the diaspora who are living our African traditions, specifically our Yoruba traditions from West Africa. This season, welcome to season 2. This season we are going to be dealing with the subject of embodying the Orisa and living our Orisa practice fully. One of the things that I've really enjoyed about hosting this podcast is it has given me an opportunity to connect to different women from around the country. And this season in specific, we will be going to Oshogbo, we'll be going to the Caribbean, we'll be going to different spaces where we can connect with other women. And inside the studio with me today, I have Iya Funlayo, who has traveled from North Carolina to be with us today. We're so grateful that you're here. It's crazy because we've seen each other on the internet plenty of times. I think people think that I have personal relationships with everybody that we interview, and I don't, right? And I'm really excited to have you here today, really excited to connect with you. We have an opportunity to go to lunch and kind of kick it a little bit after this.
Yes.
But this is really beautiful for us to have an opportunity to connect, right? To connect as women that had studied, that practice, that live these traditions.
Oh, sure.
Today in specific, we are talking about one of the most important aspects of our tradition that I often say that people, we like to skip over some of these very important topics. So this is why we started with the word Isheshe. We're going to be talking about character. We're going to be talking about our ancestors. And today we are talking about the topic of Ori. So we are blessed to have you here with us because this is like one of your specialties, right? This is one of the areas where you concentrate your work on in specific.
It absolutely is. I've been jokingly called an Ori evangelist.
Yes.
That I am always talking about Ori because literally Ifa tells us that anything we need, anything we want, anything we hope to accomplish has to come through our own Ori. That no matter how much we have support from the ancestors, no matter how much we have support from the Orisha, other people, whatever outside support we have, that Ori is the key to it all. Us being able to integrate those blessings. Sometimes people have blessings raining down on them and it's like they have an umbrella over their head, right? Where the blessings cannot reach them. And so when we cultivate Ori, we're moving that blockage out of the way so that the blessings can actually penetrate and go into us and that we can live them and receive them in the fullest way. And so for me, there's nothing more important than that. And also, as we talk about the tradition, there's often a lot of emphasis that's placed on initiation, on the things that other people do for us, which is important because this is a community tradition and I absolutely support us working together and doing for one another, but there's an important component of self-cultivation that has to happen. Ifa also tells us that we have to continually reinitiate ourselves. It's not just about the work that others do on us, it's the work we do for ourselves as well. So there's nothing more important.
I'm so excited. Okay, so before we jump right into Ori, because I want to we have a vast our audience is vast, right? Yes. So we have people that are listening for the first time that know nothing, and then we have people that have been practicing the tradition for 30 years.
Sure, of course.
But before we get into Ori in specific, I would love to hear, so we usually start off by just talking a little bit about how you got into the traditions as, as a, like, how did you come to start to live African tradition?
It's a beautiful question. I love to tell the story because I always say that the ancestors touched me early. I am the child of two pastors.
Okay.
They were not pastors when I was growing up, but they were always very much involved in the church. And my father had previously as well been in Islam and studying to be an imam. So we've been a household of spiritual people. And I grew up steeped in spirit. I grew up, hearing the Holy Ghost music and getting the Holy Ghost as a child, when really you didn't see, at least I didn't see other children experiencing that. I saw adults experiencing it, but for me, it started very early in that way. So I was always connected to spirit, but I knew very early that Christian theology didn't resonate with me. It didn't sit with me. I was always that one asking questions like, what you mean people who don't know about Jesus are going to hell? And I don't even believe there's a hell. Why would there be a hell? Right. Like it just, none of that made sense to me. And so I've always been a spiritual seeker. And two of the first places that I felt deep connection was actually in third grade. It's very funny too, because I just found we studied Hopi culture when I was in the third grade, and we made Kachina dolls, which are totems that the Hopi people pass amongst the women, particularly. So, of course, your work with women and my work is a lot with women as well. Those are family totems that are passed from mother to daughter, and we made them to represent our own energy, then as a project. And I have it. I'm 45 years old. I'm talking about something I did in third grade. I just found it recently, and it's on my mantle in my house now because that was literally my first connection to any indigenous tradition. And it touched me so deeply. I was like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. I want to make things with my hands. I want to feel that connection to spirit for myself. I want to feel that connection with my ancestral mothers. I was just so excited by it, even then. And the other place where I connected with any type of earth-based or, polyvalent spirituality was through Greek mythology, as many of us learn in school. And I got really into it. I loved the stories, especially, of course, of Athena and the Parthenon built models and all of these kind of things. So all of that to say that I was always very steeped in spirit. And when I connected with these indigenous traditions, that excited me. And it's something that I've always been excited by and connected to. I've really, in high school, I became, as I jokingly say, the schoolyard shaman. So I was leading people on plant medicine journeys. I'm not encouraging folks to do that without proper training, but listen, it was the 90s. I was, and so the point was, it wasn't just about, getting higher and things like that. I really was always trying to connect with spirit. I really always loved to connect with others. And ultimately in my 20s, I came to realize that all of these various things I had connected to, I had a period of Hinduism, being connected to Shiva, still connected to Shiva. And I realized that the one place that I had never connected to was Africa, was my place. I was like, well, wait a minute. I done heard about Native Americans. I done heard about India. I done heard about Greece. Where are the things that my people do, right? How can I connect with that? And so I went on a quest to really try to find and connect with African spirituality. And at that time, this was prior to Google and the internet and all of that. You know, it was
ChatGPT.
just right. Listen, it was all of that was just coming,
Yeah.
you know, just coming, just bubbling up. And I actually went on a trip to Ghana through my school. I was shout out to the City University of New York, where I did some of my degrees. And on that trip, I connected the professor who led that trip was an Orisa priestess.
Okay.
And so she really began to talk to me about African spirituality. I got to experience in a Khan temple then. And when I had that experience, I was like, okay, this right here, this is what I was seeking. I'm feeling it. I walked into the space and immediately just felt full, and my body began to water. It was like sweat, tears, everything was just coming forth out of me. And I had no idea what was being said or even what the ceremony was that we had walked into. But I know that every cell in my body reacted to it, and I just felt at home. And so from then on, I continued. I've had many beautiful and wonderful teachers over the years and started to study then. And when I got back to school, as spirit would have it, another professor of mine was also an Orisa priestess, which I didn't know. Wow. And I took her class on women's psychology, and she became my first teacher. And, you know, it progressed from there. And so really it was my own spiritual yearning, right, that led me to continue to visit all these different spaces, and ultimately led me to Nigeria, which was a surprise for me. I was really expecting to potentially be initiated here and to, you know, be in Lukumi. At the time, I had no connection to Nigeria. I hadn't been there. I didn't speak any Yoruba at that time, you know, nothing. And ultimately through divination was told that I was supposed to go to Nigeria. And I was like, go where now? Like, how? And I submitted myself to spirit, and I said, look, if this is supposed to happen, make it happen. Show me y'all are real. Like, make this happen. And when I tell you, within 6 months, the money that I needed, the people that I needed, everything was lined up, and I was there in Nigeria, putting my money where my mouth was. They're like, oh, you said make this happen? We're going to make it happen. Watch it happen. Yeah. So.
That's, you know, because I would say that your Ori led you into, in the right spaces and places, and you kept following the path, following the voice.
Exactly.
So this may be one of the most, I don't know, I find our stories so fascinating. Like this is something I want to explore more in terms of like how those of us around the diaspora actually came into the traditions, because the stories are so rich and the narratives are so rich and really inspiring to other people. Yes. Right? Because I know some people that kind of found the path through school, or found the path through dance, or found the path through, you know, another person, or had a dream. Like, you know, like there's so many different ways that our Ori aligns with, you know, where we're supposed to be. So let's talk a little bit about this concept of Ori.
Yes.
The very important concept of Ori. Like how would you? Because for some people, it's kind of like people don't make it solid all the time, and it's a very solid concept to me. So, what would you say is like the definition, or how do you describe Ori?
Well, first, what's important to know is that there are different facets of Ori. So, first, we have the simplest facet, Ori Ode, which is our physical head, right? The head that's on our bodies. We then have Ori Inu, which is our personal, the way I describe it is as our personal divinity, the seat of our consciousness and our conscience, that innate place in us that knows us, that can feel and sense when the things in our environment are aligned with us, that seat within us that is connected to the divine. That is that Ori Inu. And then we have Ori Apere, which is what is often called destiny. And I do a lot of work around language. And so struggling with that, because typically when we think about destiny, it's something that's seen in this, in Calvinism, in the Christian sense of something that is imposed on us. Whereas we believe in Yoruba tradition that we choose our destiny. But the interesting thing, and I was really really mulling over this last night is that when we say that we choose it, it's a mixed bag. It still doesn't mean that we had full control over what we chose.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is it's like choosing a mystery gift or choosing a raffle ticket, right? It's like you put your hand in the bag and you choose it, but you're not fully conscious of what it is that you chose. As you live, that's how the things that you chose unfold and pan out. But to start with Ori Inu, that seat of consciousness and conscience, this is the place where our personality resides, the place where our ability to integrate information and integrate connections with other people. And I don't mean our intellect per se, but the passion that we have, the place where we are either curious or not. Like when we meet people, we know some people are naturally curious about the world. Some people are naturally talented in certain artistic areas.
Yeah.
Some people are talented in speech, right? There's a lot of different things and a lot of different ways that what we call personality can manifest. And in this concept of Ori, it's deep in terms of the values, the morals. Some of us feel easily guilty about things, whereas others can, as we know, do horrible things and not feel anything about it, right? So all of those things, all of those aspects of us are contained in that space of Ori Inu. And so one of the things that is important is when we now come to Earth. So let me go back. There's a process that is called Akunleyon. And what that means is we kneel down to choose. So that place where we make this choice, and this comes from the Odu of Ogunda, or Ogbe Ogunda or Ogbe Yonu, talks about this place where we kneel down to make this choice. And it says that the things that we choose then are the things that we encounter on Earth. So we don't know at that time exactly what we've chosen. We don't know the disposition that we've chosen either. And whether the Ori Inu will line up with the Ori Apere, right? Because we may choose a particular path to walk on Earth, but the personality that we have and the inner fortitude that we have doesn't match with that destiny or that desired thing that we have chosen to do on Earth. And so that's where we find people who are not, when we say people that are not able to launch, are not able to live into their destiny, a lot of times what we really mean is that their personality and the energy that exists within them is not aligned with the thing that they may be looking to do on Earth. And so this is where cultivating the Ori is important in terms of being able to help it align a little bit more. Some Oris in the story that's in Ogbeonu, I'm very much into telling stories. And of course, this is how we transmit a lot of our knowledge. There is a story of the sons of Shango, Ogun, and Orumila going to choose their Oris. And without telling the entire story, they have to make a bow before they leave the spiritual realm in order to go and have good lives on Earth. And so, as we know, Shango and Ogun's energies can be a little bit impatient. And so they were kind of in a rush to get to the place to choose the Ori, whereas Orumila's son, Efuape, which is actually the name of Maoluo as well, blessings to him, took a little bit more time in choosing the Ori that he had. And so at the end of the story, right, Suruni Babaiwa from the same Odu, ultimately, what ends up happening is that the Oris that Shango and Ogun's sons chose were brittle, were a little bit softer. They weren't as well baked because they chose them quickly, right, without much thought. Whereas the Ori that Efuape chose was more fully formed, was more resilient to things, right? And so that affected the personality that he had on Earth. And ultimately, he came to Earth and was able to very much connect with helping people with
Destiny.
doing the things that he was intended to do.
Mhm.
And so there is a place where it's important for us to recognize that we can cultivate our Oris, that we can shift our energy as it's needed to be shifted, and that some people will need more of that than others, right? Some people will need more work to help their Oris align with the chosen path than others will. And so this is where we get into that aspect of cultivation. But ultimately, again, Ori is the personal divinity, excuse me, that place within us that where we connect with the divine.
Yeah.
And so it's important. Ifa tells us that we would rather throw every divinity away than to throw our Ori away. That we have to know that everything that we get comes through that. And it says that Ori is the only divinity that walks with us through life without ever turning back, without ever leaving us. Because even our ancestors, I just talked about this the other day, even our ancestors, Orisa, they have other people to attend to.
Absolutely.
Many other people to attend to, whole lineages.
Right.
Whereas our Ori is the one space that is just for us.
Yes.
That is always there to help and to assist us. And it's really on that philosophical level, just about, having ourselves cultivated in such a way to make the right choices and to be able to follow the path. Like when I was telling my story, at any point in that, I could have turned a different way or not listened to how I was being guided by myself in spirit. And I trusted what I was feeling, trusted what I was sensing, trusted myself, trusted my Ori and the way I was being guided to go with that. And so that is a big part of us being able to connect with the things that we are tasked to do on earth, the things that we have chosen.
Yeah. So thank you. My some of my world just opened up a little bit. I'm familiar with the story in Okbeyonu. As a matter of fact, it's a joke in our house. Like when things happen, there's a line in that same Odu. It's like, I don't know where good Ori is chosen, right? I've gone and found it for myself.
Yes.
And my husband, he says that all the time. Like when something good happens, he's like, I don't know where good Ori is chosen. Like I went and found it for myself. But you talked about cultivating, right? Cultivating our Ori. And a lot of times when we come into the tradition, right? Well, I know people may come to get a divination. Someone came the other day, right? And the first thing they always want to know is, who's my head Orisha? Who's my head Orisha? Who's my head Orisha? And to slow that person down and say, like, the Orisha are like, they're here, they're not going anywhere, right? And even more important than that is for you to have this connection with your Ori and to, like you're saying, to cultivate, to grow, to hold, to build that relationship with that part of you, that very intimate part of you that you came here with.
That seat of power. That's the most thing.
What a beautiful word. I like the way you put that.
It's
the
your
seat of power.
Seat of power. And so many of us, especially those of us who are coming to the tradition from Protestant Christianity, from Christianity period, part of the reason why often people come with this question of who's my head Orisha is because they're looking for a savior still, right? They still have this idea that some other entity has to save them or do for them that they can't do for themselves. I can't trust myself, so tell me what Orisha I'm supposed to trust, right? I can't save myself, so tell me which Orisha is gonna be Jesus for me, right? Like that's essentially what a lot of times people are looking for without realizing it. And the radically beautiful thing about coming into this tradition and African traditions period is the centering of our own power, the centering of our own power. And a lot of times the reason why people don't want that power is because with power comes responsibility. Right? The centering of our own responsibility as well, right? There, it says that there is a place, there are things that we come with, right? There are things that are ingrained in us. that we are not able to change, even in terms of, there's another concept called IMO that talks about the things that have been affixed to us that we can't change. So we don't, that where we were born, who our parents are, you know, things of that nature, we're not able to change. And that also affects whether we are able to fulfill the destiny that we came with. Because sometimes, like, you hear people say a person is ahead of their time, or things of that nature.
Yes,
like
yes.
they've come at a time when whatever gifts they have are not able to be fully realized. There are some who come and they have the gift, but that Ori Inu is not cultivated, or it's not at a place where they're able to realize it. So maybe they end up in addiction, or maybe they end up in another place that doesn't allow them to cultivate it, or to fulfill it. And so, yeah, I think it's really important and, you know, empowering. And for me, what was so empowering about the tradition was connecting with Ori and saying, oh no, I have the power here. I don't have to wait for anybody to save me. Yes, I can get help.
Yes.
Right? My ancestors can help me.
Yes.
The Orisa can help me. But I have the power to make the things happen that I want to happen. I have the power to make the connections. I have the power to move and to grow and to do and to experience joy in life and all of these things. That's within me. And that made me feel extra empowered, because I'm like, okay, now I'm in control of it, right? I can do things when I feel out of alignment, or when I feel like things aren't going the way that I want them to. There's something that I can do about it. I don't have to wait for anyone to come and save me.
So how do people cultivate their Ori? What are some practical ways? So this whole season is about practicality, right? So how do people build relationships and really cultivate that space for themselves?
Well, one of the first and simplest ways, you know, again, people often come looking for the razzle dazzle. They're looking for, you know, the sky to open. I always say, listen, if y'all waiting for the sky to open up and the hand of Voldemort to come down and pick you up and do, like, you're going to be waiting a mighty long time. You're going to be waiting a mighty long time. So the first thing that we can do is really shift our mindset to the degree possible, right? And affirm to ourselves that our Ori is our seat of power, right? Through prayer, through affirmations. I'm big on affirmations. The power of the word is so important. And praying out loud is very important, right? When we pray out loud, it's not only for the divine to hear, it's for us to hear, right? So that I hear what I've said. I'm hearing what I'm trying to do. I'm hearing what my goal is for myself. And so,
which is different from how we're taught in Christianity, right? Because you say the silent prayer, right? And you keep it to yourself.
Right.
And a lot of times when people are praying over their items, sometimes you said, you know, speak over it, and they're not used to that, right? I mean, you want me to pray out loud? And I'd be like, I do. Now, it ain't none of my business, right? It is for you to put that energy into the ether, and also that your Ori can hear, like
that's
you're saying that
you're vibrating your own eardrums, that you are programming yourself, right? All of this stuff that we hear now that people call new age in terms of affirmation and self-programming, you know, that is that's our traditions. That's all of our African spiritual traditions. We have that as a baseline of what we do. So praying and chanting over our Ori is one of the first places. When I wake up in the morning, every morning, before I get out of the bed, I gotta go, you know, the shrine for Ori is right here. So I wake up, and before I get up, I just hold my head and say, my Ori is powerful. My Ori is good. I give thanks for my Ori, and I pray for it to lead me well. Right? Just that simple. That's simple. And the more we say that, right, even if you don't believe it at first, the more you say it, the more you are programming yourself. You're programming your own mind. You're programming your own energy to believe that you have that power, and that, yes, it's going to be a good day, and I'm going to be blessed today, and I'm going to be great today, and I'm going to do well today, right? Everything is going to be good for me. we don't realize how much time we spend programming ourselves in the opposite way, right? How many times we wake up and we're like, oh God, I gotta get up.
Gotta do this again.
Right? And we're trudging through life. And every time we say those things and express those energies, it programs our Ori. It programs us to believe that that's the case. Every time we say, oh, well, I can't do this, I need somebody else to save me from it, right? Or every time we even think that, it programs us and diminishes our power. So particularly those of us who have been raised in traditions that have been disempowering to us, it's really, really important that we start with this step before we even talk about rituals and all of these other things. Just saying, right? I believe in my own personal power. I believe in the fact that I have what it takes to connect with my path. I believe that. And we continue to cultivate it. There is a chant that comes from Otura Ogbe that we say each week in, I do a Monday motivation podcast, and each week we say this chant together, and I teach it in my Yoruba classes and things, and it says, Kajini kutu kutu, kamomo honi pinkopin, difa funo lomo ajibare padelola. Emi ni mo jini kutukutu ti mo mu ohun ni pinkopin. Emi ni mo ba aje ati ire loni ati lola. It says that when I wake up early in the morning and I give honor to my Ori, to my own path of destiny. Ooh, I got chills with that. I'm the one. When I do that, then I will meet with good things. Not only today, but also tomorrow. It says I'm the one who gets up early in the morning
to greet my
and greets my Ori. And therefore, listen, I'm the one who's going to meet with all good things, right? Today and tomorrow. That the work that we do to cultivate ourselves today, the work that we do to affirm and empower ourselves today is not only for today, it's also for tomorrow. And so saying chants like that, saying prayers, and don't, be intimidated by the Yoruba piece. If you don't speak Yoruba, say it in English. Right? But say it is the important piece. And do that self-programming. That's the first and one of the most powerful things that we can do.
That chant specifically, I remember reading it in, it's in the
Chief
Green
Farmer's book.
Yep.
Yes.
So I always say I bought those books long before I knew what to do with them. Right? I was just like trying to get resources.
And shout out to Chief Farmer. That book has been around the world.
It's like the it's the handbook, if you will. Yes. And I read that book. So even what Iya is saying in terms of I didn't know a lick of Yoruba, and I read all I could say. I sounded it out. Kaji ni kutu kutu. I remember sounding it out, and I was like, "That's the only part that I could say." But I memorized the rest of it in English.
Yes.
And to this day, even I do when I do Ibori for people, I still say it in English because that is the way I feel it, right? I
when
feel
you know
it
what
so
you're
much,
saying,
right?
You feel it more deeply. Yeah.
So I love what you said about in really empowering us to stop approaching this with fear, right? In terms of I don't know how to say it right. I can't say this. Like I don't do this. Like it closes you up from the opportunity to really connect, right? Like if you're not in the space yet, and I'm not saying you shouldn't get there because language is important, right? We just talked about last week. We talked about Isheshe in specific, and had to break it down because of the language of it, the way we're using the word, right? And you still have to, there's a starting place. Don't be scared to start.
Right.
Start
Don't be
where
scared
you're
to
at. Start where you're at. Exactly.
And like I said, it can be as simple as saying, I honor my Ori. I believe that my Ori has power. I claim my power. Something just that simple, right? Can really make a big difference in how we feel our energy and how we feel our connection to ourselves, because really that's what this is about, is connection to ourselves. We talk about, liberation a lot, and we talk about, particularly again as diasporic Africans who have been disconnected from our traditions. But before we can even get to that, we have to believe ourselves worthy of it. Right? We have to feel like there is a reason for us to be liberated. We have to feel like we are valuable. And so connecting with Ori is one of those places where we connect with our own value. And importantly, connect with our value regardless of our various states, right? So what I mean by that is that every Ori is different. Some are hotter, some are cooler. The Ifa tells us that we all get our Ori from the same place, but we all have different destinies. We all have different personalities. We all have different ways that our minds process and things of that nature. And there is value in each of them.
All of it.
Right? And the Orisha are a prime example of that. The energy of Obatala, Ipa, Orisha is not the same as the energy of Ogun. It's not the same as the energy of Yemoja. It's not the same as the energy of Oya. But each one of them is valuable and brings a valuable frequency. And it's the same for us. And it's just important for us to know how to work with our own frequency so that we're not fighting ourselves, right? This is the part. That's the part, right? We often are trying to be something other than we are. And cultivating Ori and connecting with Ori in many senses is about self-acceptance. Is about saying, I'm getting to understand who I am, and I'm understanding how I have to work with myself. So the way I work with myself may not look the same as the way Iya Omisegun works with herself, may not look the same as the way Yashola connects with herself. It may not look the same as the way the next sister connects with herself, and that's okay. We all have different means and different ways of being able to connect, and understanding that we are all valuable in that is really important.
Yes. This is the level of deep work that I think it's simple, and yet it can be
the hardest thing.
It can be hard for people, right?
Because we're talking about, like I said, reprogramming ourselves. We have had this idea of our own sinfulness. We have had this idea of our own shortcoming, our own powerlessness drilled into us ancestrally. Let's not even talk about our own lifetime, for generations, right? And so this, in reprogramming ourselves, that is the important part of connecting with Ori, because it's literally deprogramming and reprogramming. It's unlearning and then learning something new in its place. When we unlearn, we have to put something else in its place. Otherwise, we create a vacuum and we create confusion. So we can't just be rejecting. We have to know what's going to go in the place of that. And so this empowerment that we come with, this place where we come to empower ourselves through reprogramming, is very, very, very important. And Ori is so important in that process of reprogramming ourselves to notice and respect our own power.
So how do we know when we are out of alignment with our Ori? Like, is it something that is just felt and sensed, or because, like sometimes you think, I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I think that I'm on the right path, right? And then I'll start to, there'll be some things in me that will either, like awaken, shake, like there's some uneasiness that I may feel, right? And I feel like those are spaces and places where I'm like, wait, maybe, maybe something's out of alignment, right? Maybe I thought I was taking the right path and something doesn't feel right to me anymore. Like, how do we learn to pay attention to that inner navigation, to even know when we're out of alignment?
That's a wonderful question and an important one. And it's also related to knowing how and if we can trust what it is that we're feeling, right? Because when we are out of alignment, we can think and feel a lot of different things, and it can be hard to know which way to go, which one to listen to. So in addition to the self-programming that we do, through prayer and through affirmation and chanting, of course, this being part of the power of our tradition is that we do have divination, right? We do have divination, both those divinations that we do ourselves on a regular basis with kola nut or cocoa with our shrines, as well as the divinations that we receive from others. And so divination is a powerful tool to help us to understand where we are aligned. If we are out of alignment, it can help to confirm for us that yes, the things that you are doing are on the right path for yourself. Yes, the things that you are doing are in alignment, or no, the things that you're doing are not in alignment. And sometimes the hardest thing is to be told that what you're doing is not in alignment when it's feeling good. Right?
Oh, talk about that.
Because sometimes just because something feels good doesn't mean it's in alignment, because things can change. We know that another proverb that comes in is that that it's loss and gain that makes the world. So you can be on the top and something can feel real good now. Yeah. And tomorrow it feel so good anymore because it was not actually in alignment. And so receiving divination, checking in on the things. Now, of course, again, we don't want to see divination as the new Jesus either, right? Yeah. The thing that's going to save us and keep us from our own personal responsibility or from that place of thinking through and reasoning through and feeling intuitively through what it is that we need to feel. But it is important to get those check-ins. And part of the reason for that is, so we have another breakdown, and the concept of Ori is so deep. I mean, we can really talk about it forever, and I've been studying it for a long time. There is another kind of tripartite breakdown within Ori, which talks about the Ori that exists not only in our heads, but in the different parts of our bodies. So we have Ori in our heads, of course. We have Ori in Ori Inu. Inu also refers to our stomach or our gut. So we have Ori there as well. And we have Ori Ese, Ori of the feet. We have Ori Owo, Ori of the hands. And so there's a lot of different alignments that have to happen to make sure that things can work well for us. So sometimes we get stuck in the Ori of the head in terms of reasoning and thinking, especially again, because many of us in this Western world, we have been trained to believe that the intellect and reasoning is superior to our other ways of knowing. And so we're only thinking about things and not feeling them, right? Whereas our Ori Inu of the gut is that intuitive place, right? And sometimes we thinking and we feeling and we not doing nothing, right? And the Ori of the feet and the hands is what we have to do, right? So you could think something all day, you could feel it all day, but then if you're not taking action on it, right, it's not going to be able to manifest. And so a part of what divination does is help to signal us as to whether those various parts are aligned. It may say, look, you feeling good, you're feeling like you're on the right path, but you're not doing enough, right? These are the things you need to do to actually make whatever you're seeking come to pass, or these are the places you need to go. You've become stagnant and you're staying right here because it feels comfortable for now, but it's not going to feel so comfortable soon. And so you need to move and go to a new place where you can connect. And so definitely divination is one place, and it's important to have trusted diviners. And I will say that it's important not to, again, one of the things that people can have a tendency to do is want to run from place to place until they hear what they want to hear, as opposed to what they need to hear. And so, having a trusted and a consistent diviner is really important because you get to know that person's energy, they get to know yours, and the spirits, that as they are working with. And this isn't, and I'll say when I talk about divination, I don't only mean from Ifa, right? Okay. Divination comes in many, many different forms. I read tarot, I use pendulums, I use crystals, I use a lot of different methods to connect with the divine, I Ching, whatever it is you're using. some type of connecting with the divine to check in on the path is important. The other thing is, on a simpler level, we can often tell that we're out of alignment when things just aren't going well for us, right? If we if we just don't feel good all the time, if we feel consistently aggravated, we're sad, we're depressed, things are not happening well for us. A lot of times, even what we refer to as mental health challenges come from Ori misalignment, come from not having ourselves in balance in that way. And so, we can talk about it all day, through therapy, and don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely an advocate of therapy, of medication when it's needed, but we have, I think, become over reliant on those things, right? To the point where we often, people will be in therapy and on medication for years and years and years
and still
never,
not doing nothing.
Right. And never see anything change because the real change that's needed is on a spiritual level and internal. Perhaps they are, and even when we talk about things like taboos or things that we are told not to do, not to connect with, or things that we are told to do. And I want to talk more about that because often when people talk about taboos, they only focus on the don't do's. There are things that we are also to do, right? That are said to us when we receive initiation or when we receive readings and things, to say that, like, for me, one of the reasons I wear white so much is because it's a power color for me. As a child of Obatala, and also because of various other energies that work with me, it's a power color. And so part of how I cultivate my Ori is by wearing white. Right. And by not wearing other colors that disrupt or that affect my energy in a way that's not as conducive. So there's so many different ways in terms of getting into some of that. Divination, of course, is also meant to spur ritual. Right. And this is one of the powerful things about the system of Ifa in particular, is that it's not just giving information, but it is also giving solution. So if you receive a reading that says, listen, there's a misalignment in this way, then there is a bow that can be done to help realign. Right. There are other rituals that can be done. So we have Ibori, which is a ritual of making offering to the head and of cooling and placating the energy of the head so that it can, and I will say, many of these rituals, although again we focus a lot on the head, also include working on these other areas of ourselves as well. So there are, and for people who are not as familiar, when they're going through rituals, you may not know why the priest is putting something in your belly button or putting something on your toe, right? Part of that is making sure that all of this is in alignment so that we are able to move in the most conducive way possible for us to have a successful life. We, according to the Yoruba, are meant to have ire owo, ire omo, ire aiku. We are meant to have the resources to care for ourselves. We're meant to have productivity in the form of children, both physical and not physical. We are meant to have long life, right? And so these are the things, these are the blessings that Ori is meant, that having a cultivated and good Ori are meant to bring to us. And so when we don't have these things, again, there are places where we are able to, first reprogram, receive divination, and receive ritual that can help to align us. There are also rituals that people can do for themselves, even without receiving divination first. And so, again, very, very simple ritual is putting cool water on the head and just saying, Ori mi tutu, may my Ori be cool. Because a lot of our issues be coming from being too hot in the head, right? Too impatient, too quick to pop off, too quick to react. And so, cultivating Ori is also cultivating patience and cultivating a sense of coolness. And so that's something very, very simple that anyone can do to help cool and cultivate their ori. And I'll add as well that shea butter, which is also called ori in Yoruba language, is another very important offering that we can make to the head and to the ori, to all of the seats of ori. So I'll recommend, putting a dab of shea butter on the 4 points of the head, a little bit in the navel, a little bit on the toes, a little bit in the palms of the hands, right? Or even just oiling down, right? Because we got to stay moisturized, oiling down with the shea butter. Like, let every piece of ori that's in me, let it be cultivated, let it be cool, let it be in alignment, let it be smooth, right? Let there be no friction. That's a part of that as well. So those are some things that we can do practically.
So I have a question about, you mentioned divination, which is very important in our traditions.
Yes.
There have been times where, we get a lot of calls, DMs, things like that, for women that are like, I received this divination that said this thing, right? Let's say, I'll put it out there. Like, I received this divination that said I should marry a Babalawo.
Right. Marry the Babalawo who did the divination.
I don't even want to go there, right? I don't even want to go there. Like, just to marry a Babalawo.
Right.
And it's not it's not gelling with your ori, right? Like you're and then it becomes a struggle for you because one, you truly want to follow, right? Like for those of us that truly want to follow the path of Ifa and truly want to follow what we're being told, and we find ourselves like in some kind of conflict, internal battle struggle with whatever is being told to us, in the divination. How does one reconcile with oneself in that time?
That is such an important question. So important. And, one of my dear sisters, the Afro mystic, always says, your good black sense is your first divination tool. Right? So no matter what other kind of divination you getting, if something does not feel right, and when I say, not just what you think, but again, this is a part of that recognizing or renew in the gut. If something doesn't feel right to you, it probably isn't. And so, we have to, this is a part of the thing, again, in going back to this analogy of seeking saviors. Priests are human beings. And Ifa tells us that good human beings are as rare as a spare eye. Right. And so what does that mean? None of us got no spare eyes waiting at home. And so what that means is that every human being has the potential to be not good. Every human being has the potential to manipulate. Every human being has the potential to lie. Right. And so we have to take the things. This is why, first of all, it's important to cultivate relationships with those from whom we're getting divination and have at least some sense of their character. And I know that that's challenging because, traditionally people lived in communities where, the priest was someone that their family had been connected to. It might have been their uncle, their father. Generations, right? There was an understanding. And those who did not have good character and those who said things that weren't true. And Ifa tells us about that. It says that, one of the worst sins a priest can commit is saying something that's not true, that they've divined on, or twisting the message of divination for their own benefit, whether that be telling someone they need to marry you, whether that be telling someone the ebo costs $10,000 when it's only $2, whatever that deception is, that is one of the worst offenses that a priest can commit, and it diminishes their own ashe, it diminishes their own blessings when they do that. Now, does that mean that nobody does it? It doesn't, right? And so it's very important, first of all, to have some sense of the character of the person from whom we are going to receive divination to begin with. Get a reference. Don't be in such a hurry. And again, this is the thing, when we are impatient, when we are desperate, a lot of times people take advantage of that. When we come like, oh no, I gotta, right? Stop that. And that's why I always encourage, like I said, that self-cultivation first. Help Ori, guide me. Ori, show me the way to go. Ori, let me feel what's right and what's not, right? Starting there before you even go to anybody else for divination, so that when you do, you're able to feel what's in alignment with you. Now, there are times when we are told, and this is a part of where our own self cultivation is important, because there are times that we are told to do things we simply don't want to do it.
Yeah.
That doesn't
There's
mean,
a difference.
right? There's a difference between something not feeling right, feeling dangerous, feeling out of alignment, and us simply not wanting to do it, right? And so again, this is where having that sense of self is important, so that we are able to discern the difference in that. And again, once we have cultivated that relationship of trust, where we know this person actually has my best interest at heart, this person is not trying to manipulate me, this person is not trying to get anything from me from their own personal gain, but they really care about me. And so even if they tell me to do something that I don't want to do, it doesn't feel wrong, but I just don't want to do it, I'm able to put that don't want to do it aside a little bit and trust. And one of, as I've said, I'm a spiritualist through and through. I have walked many different paths, and one of my favorite quotes comes from Buddha and says that we come to know the path by walking the path. And so part of what we have to cultivate as well as trust, when we are forming relationships with the spirits, trusting and walking the path that's being set out for us. Again, not if it feels wrong, but it may feel a little uncomfortable. It may be things that we don't want to do. If we are able to say, you know what, I'm trusting this path and I'm going to walk it, that's how you cultivate relationship. That's how you cultivate faith, right? It's when you see the things happen. Like when I said way back to the spirits, listen, y'all make this happen and I will walk this path. If you make the money come, if you show me where to go, if you connect me to the right people, I will walk. And when that happened, I had the choice, right? That was that Eshu moment in the crossroads where I just like, okay, well, I got this money now. I could go buy something else or do something else. But no, I chose to walk it. And it was through that walking that my faith was more deeply cultivated and more deeply cultivated. So, there is, again, a certain amount of self-work that has to be done before we even get into working with others. Because if we don't know what feels right in our bodies, if we don't know what a yes feels like in our bodies and what a no feels like in our bodies, if we are still seeking someone else to save us, right, then we're going to trust. And now we're going to make the priest God, right? And the priest, the one who is in charge of us. And Iya said, and I tell my godchildren all the time, don't say I said nothing, right? I didn't say anything, right? The spirits said this. I'm conveying the message. Now it's your choice. This is the other thing about Ifa and about divination more broadly, but Ifa in particular. When we listen to the way that the Odus are spoken, everything that's spoken from Ifa is called advice. Nothing is called a declaration. Nothing is called an order. It's all advice. And the reason that is important is because advice you can choose to follow or not, right? The structure of Ifa stories tells us, so this happened, so-and-so was advised to offer sacrifice and they complied or they didn't. And this was the outcome. Right. And so now in hearing that, you can say, oh, okay, they offered the sacrifice and they had this outcome. I want that outcome too. So let me go ahead and do that and see if I get the same outcome. Or they were told to offer sacrifice and they didn't, and that was the outcome, and I don't want that outcome. So let me go ahead and do it. Right. But again, that place, we don't escape personal responsibility. We don't escape personal choice. And so that is why cultivating that place within us that is able to make good choices is so, so vital.
I want to add one small thing to what you're saying, because just if you think about your Ori like a muscle, right? When you are working out your muscles, this shit is uncomfortable,
Right?
right?
Sore.
Right. Everything is not always going to feel hunky dory, right? There will be there's some soreness, right? Because you're sometimes you're ripping apart your muscles to be able to gain strength. So I want people to, because this happens a lot in. Well, I see it in divination as people are growing and elevating, right? They're coming for divination. Things are happening in their life, and the Orisha may be stretching you, right?
Yes,
Your
past your
Ori may
comfort
be
zone.
right, and you feel discomfort. Does it mean my Ori is
wrong.
something's wrong?
Right.
Thank you. Like we have to know the difference, because
That's right.
it feels like a lot of us want to be comfortable all the time,
Right?
And that's the space of growth, right, is normally in those very uncomfortable places. So sometimes it's completely okay and in alignment to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, you have to be. You have to be, because if you're too comfortable, that means you're not growing, right?
Sure.
It's like babies in the womb. They real comfortable in there, but at a certain point, you too big, it's time to come out.
Yeah.
Right? And it's very uncomfortable when you come out into the light and there's all these sounds and all this stuff, and you're like, now does that mean being born is bad?
Right.
Of course not.
Yeah.
Right? But that is the process that we're going through when we come into our spiritual traditions. We are being reborn. So no, it's not going to be comfortable. There's going to be some bright lights in your face that you're not used to. There's going to be some noises that you're not used to, some smells, some sounds. There's going to be some disconnection from the things that felt comfortable. So as comfortable as it felt in the mother's womb, now you have to learn how to connect with her a different way, from being inside of her to now being outside. Doesn't mean you're not still connected to her, but it's a different type of connection, right? And so we have to allow ourselves to go through that discomfort in order to get to where we seek to get to, in order to walk the path of life, in order to, find joy and success. It takes walking through those places of discomfort. And again, self-awareness is so important for us to understand the difference between discomfort and danger. There is a difference. Everything that's uncomfortable is not dangerous, but some things are. Yeah. And so that is why it's been a personal crusade of mine, and why Spirit has led me to let people know what should and should not be happening in their interactions with priests and in their interactions with people in the community. We talked before we started about joy and fun. Like this, the whole part of this is not to be, and again, we bring a lot of this from our previous spiritual experiences, where so much was about you going to hell and you're sinful and you're and we're feeling beat down, and we think that we're supposed to feel bad. So now when we go and we connect with an Orisha priest who is mean and who is telling us we're bad and who's telling us we better do this and we better do that, we're so used to that as our baseline of interacting with Spirit that we think that that's how it's supposed to be. And it isn't. It isn't. Right? It isn't. And so it's very important, again, to listen to ourselves. If you don't like somebody, right, if your spirit ain't taken to them, that's not the person to be your godparent. Doesn't matter how much energy, how much ashe you think they got, knowledge, whatever. If your spirit and theirs doesn't vibe, if you just don't like them as a person, if you don't feel like you can trust them as a person and really be vulnerable with them for whatever the reason may be, they're not the person for you.
And same for leaders, right? Taking on people to lead them. If you don't really like that person, just pass.
Right, because listen, you can't, because as you're seeking to help them cultivate their Ori, spells begin in the mind. Before we be thinking that witchcraft and spell work has to look complicated and burning candles and having what they call bad mind about somebody, right, is its own form of spell and witchcraft. So if you got a bad mind about somebody, you don't need to be standing over them, doing nothing over their head and any of that kind of thing. And I've had listen,
the stories.
Right? I got stories that I will never tell, because the integrity of a priest says that we don't tell those things. But, it's not right. We think about only abuses going from the top down, and those who are under us can abuse us
Absolutely.
too, and part of that is, again, not having that cultivated sense of self-awareness, to where we're now expecting the priest to do miracles for us and make everything good for us, and when it doesn't go good, it's their fault. We want to have somebody to blame, and so that's where that self-cultivation and self-awareness is so vital, and we can't get away from it. You know, a lot of the times, and this is why the Ori work and the soul work that we do is so important, because people often will think, you know, again, that initiation or connecting with Orisa is going to fix their problems, and it will not.
It's just
because one of the things we have to remember is that every Orisa energy, looking at Orisa specifically, every Orisa energy exists on a continuum, right? They have I'll say the least evolved type of energy up to the most cultivated and evolved type of energy. So for example, using my Baba Obatala as an example, on the highest and most cultivated level, Baba is the great father, the one who wraps everybody in white cloth and keeps everybody peaceful and gives good advice and is able to help motivate and encourage people to walk in their highest selves and all of that type of thing. On the uncultivated side, Obatala, that energy is manipulative, right? That energy is controlling. That energy is unpleasant, right? It's grouchy and grumpy when people don't do what it wants. That energy doesn't want to allow other people, because of being the owner of all heads, doesn't want to allow other people to use their Ori and wants to dictate and demand what they're going to do, right? So when we say, you know, I want to be like Obatala or be connected to Obatala, what aspects are we talking about, right? We have that, of course, with every Orisha, right? With Oshun. The most cultivated version is the version that is self-reflective, that is, you know, connected in with doing well in commerce, of having, you know, business acumen, of being the great mother and nurturer. And the other aspect will drown you, right? The other aspect is vain, right? And only uses that mirror not as a way to cultivate self, but as a way to aggrandize self, right? So all of these energies exist on continuums. And so in order for us to manifest the highest version of those energies, it means that we have to manifest the highest version of ourselves first. This is why, depending on the lineage of tradition that you go through, there is a lot of Ori cultivation that happens beforehand through spiritual work, through, you know, getting readings and doing ebos. And, you know, what I discovered when I, you know, when you first, as a person, when you get initiated, you don't know what has happened to you, right? You experience it. It's only when you participate later that you see what's happened. And so when I participated, you know, as a priest now in subsequent initiations, that's when I really saw how much divination, how much reading, how much checking was going in at every stage. Right. And this is to say, is what we're doing in alignment? Is what we're doing in alignment? No. Okay, here's the ebo. We got it. Like, it's ebo on top of ebo on top of ebo on top of, okay, come back. No, you got to pray some more. You got to listen to get you right before we seat that energy on you, to make sure that when we seat it, it is the most cultivated version of that energy. And so that's why it's so important not to rush the process. Because, I could put Shango on your head today and you could go burn your palace down tomorrow, because the version of you that received that Shango energy received the version of him. That's not the diplomat, but that is the one who wants to show off and play with fire and burned his house down. Right. And so it's important to be patient. And again, to recognize the importance of that self-cultivation first.
Yeah, thank you so much for dropping your knowledge and for being here with us. And you know, I truly, truly appreciate this. Is a this is a gift on so many levels, right? To be able to to talk, to be able to connect, to be able to learn, right? You have years of people's priesthood. So I really appreciate so much how many priests have been willing to come, and even, even students and devotees been willing to come and share their knowledge and share their narratives, right? Because it really is impacting people in a very big way. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
We end each episode with a prayer. And if you would bless us with a prayer for our Ori, for all those that are watching and listening.
Absolutely. Omi tutu. Ashe tutu, ana tutu, ile tutu. Ori tutu, Eshu tutu. We give thanks and honor to each and every Ori that it has been with us today. Those who listen now, those who will listen later. We pray for each Ori to receive exactly what it needs from having listened. We pray for each Ori to be open to its blessings and closed to those things that are not meant for it. We pray for each Ori to be cool and patient with receiving blessings. We pray for each Ori to be in alignment. We pray to be able to receive the help of our ancestors, to receive the help of our Orisha, to receive the help of all of our divine beings, and to be open to all of the blessings that are meant for us. Ori Wu, Ori Wu. May our Ori expand. May our Ori accept all good things. May we be wrapped in goodness today, tomorrow, and always. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.
Ashe. Oh, thank you, Iya. And we thank you all for watching, for tuning in. Please like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. We're just about, as of today, we're just about under 1,000 subscribers. So we truly appreciate your energy and sharing the podcast with like minds. And we will see you all next week, right here, 7:00. If you are in the app, then check in with us at 8 p.m. on Wednesday, Eastern Standard Time, and we'll have a talk back on this specific discussion. You all have a good evening. Odabo.